Hey, Clarence, welcome to the show. As a way of getting started, tell us why you got in sales.
Yeah, well, I got in sales at the end of the day to help feed my family
Yeah.
because I started off as an engineer, and at the time that just wasn't cutting it. So I decided to go into sales to really control my own destiny, and that's what I was able to do.
And was it easy? Easy transition or
N- Not at first. It was rough. The first 6 months, I would say I wanted to get out of it. I was like, maybe this isn't for me, but then I kind of found my niche and was able to become very successful in it. But it took work.
what was that niche? Was it what you were selling or who you were selling
Yeah,
to?
so it was what I was selling. I started selling when I started in sales. It was just basically a big company, wireless technology company with cell phones, tablets. I knew the technology, so it made it easier. So I didn't have to learn the product piece. I was able to focus on the sales part of it, and that allowed me to really focus in, hone in my skills on the sales, my reach out, my message, and then attacking what I was good at is having conversations with those technical people who didn't always, like talking to this normal sales guy. So I was able to have those conversations and really found like, oh, I can have a technical conversation with someone and still sell them something that will benefit them and solve their problem and feel comfortable doing it. So that's what it was.
Yeah, because I kind of had the same background, but then the challenge is how do you talk to the business people who could care less about the technology, but yet uh, they're needed to get the order done.
Yeah, and that's when I was like, I got the sales part down with technical people, and then it was really filtering and understanding what their needs were. It wasn't engineering's needs. And we all know engineering, like you said, your background's in it. We'll spend $1 million if we wanted to just to get the job done. But the business people are like, no, we can't spend $1 million. And why, if we were to spend $1 million, would we even? So it allowed me to kind of think outside the box a little more personally to be like, okay, if I was a business owner, what would I be, why would this benefit me? And then it turned into the conversations around, hey, let's make your efficiencies better. Let's refine your business process so when things are happening in your business, you're able to control them better. You're able to manage it better. And then once I started having those conversations, got more comfortable with the business level of those conversations, I then, started talking to the finance people who it's constant negotiation with them, it seems like, and getting the right price while not underselling the product and getting discounts all the time.
Right. And why would you ever leave sales?
Well, I decided to kind of turn around and start my own company. So that kind of turned into, yes, I'm still in sales and an effect of being at the top of the company, but it realized I had a co-founder who was really good at sales too, and I could trust him, and I could focus more on the building of the business product side of things, and was able to really start doing that. And that's the only reason I left it. But I'm still doing it, still responsible for doing it on the side. So
Yeah.
those sales skills definitely have come in handy.
And what makes you think your partner is better at sales?
Well, it's not necessarily he's better. He's
Just
just
focused on it.
yeah, he's more focused on it. Yeah, that's probably what I would say. He's been doing it for a long time, just like me, but and that was his focus, is that's what he wanted to focus on, and he didn't want to deal with the engineering. He didn't want to deal with any of that. He just wanted to focus on sales. So that's why I call him better at this point, because that's what he's focused on. Whereas I'll still jump on a sales call with him to talk to, CTO, CIO, even the finance people. But he's primarily focused on that, hunting the leads right now.
And what was some of the major pivot points in your career as far as your skills at selling?
It was definitely at first, like when I talked about it first, it was that pivot of, oh, I can actually have these conversations. Then that turned into from okay, I can do the transactional part where people want to buy, but how do I get people interested into what I'm selling? Because that's the hardest part. Is it's great when you're getting leads left and right, it makes your life easy. But the hard part about sales and what people sometimes don't realize is making people interested in something they might, one, not know about, two, think they don't need. Um, and I was able to kind of pivot and say, I know about your business. I know about the technology. About a year and a half, 2 years into my wireless sales job, it really became easy in a sense of this is what I'm benefiting from. I'm helping you benefit from, and this is what I'm bringing to the table to help solve all these business needs that you might not even know you have right now.
Because I think a lot of us are in that space. You know, marketing people call it the dark funnel. I call it the market. Because
Yeah.
the 1/10 of 1% who are active paying, you probably had them, but you were in a hyper competitive space.
Hmm. Yeah,
Well,
and that's, I mean, hyper
probably what you
competitive
do
space like
now is not
wireless.
hyper competitive, right?
Oh, no, I mean, no. I mean, right now, basically the company that we built is basically a location-based CRM, which it's not as competitive, but it's a huge industry, and you always have the big boys. But yeah, it's not as competitive as the wireless technology, where 90% of the time everyone's worried about price, price, price. And you're like, let's not talk about price. Let's talk about actual
Well,
needs.
they want price for what they have in their mind and what they have right
Mhm.
now. They
Yeah.
and that's the worst argument because first it shows no interest whatsoever,
Hmm.
only
Hmm.
curiosity.
Yeah. And that's kind of where this conversations would always start sometimes is, okay, can you save me money? And it's like, let's put that on the back burner for a little bit. Let's not even worry about that. Let's find out what you actually need and will benefit from.
Yeah. And on the pure cold ones, because I'm sure you, as you went to different companies that didn't have a brand name, how did you build that interest with the cold, passive, latent pain stranger?
Yeah, no, those that was definitely, that's where it got really difficult, and was what another pivot point which we talked about earlier, in a sense of like when you have a big brand name behind you, it's easy. I mean, everyone knows the name. It's easier.
Yeah,
It's
right.
different, right? I mean, but having it not a name out there, it's like you have to one explain to them what the name is, what you do, because they know nothing about you, and it's getting that interest of what's this company do? Why are you calling me? Like um,
Why should I
and going
care?
through that is why should I care? So I started, building a lot of, um, just market. I became marketing in that sense to a certain extent of, outreach via email, outreach at trade shows, outreach at on LinkedIn, social media has become great for salespeople. I say, in a sense of, it was more about building the brand rather than just selling, a widget, right? It's building the brand. What does it do?
Well, I mean, we have a choice. We could either just, you know, because when you meet a stranger, it's a bridge. You either trying to get them to bridge to you or you bridge to them or
Mhm.
some combination and meet in the middle.
Yeah, yeah. And then I got to a lot of chamber events that I started going to. It was like, oh, you have this need, but that was simple chamber events. But then growing it to an enterprise level, um, then it becomes totally different too.
Was your approach top down or bottom up or
I multiple ways. I mean, both were successful. I preferred the bottom up because I felt that sometimes the people on the bottom, people at the top are worried about, they're not really the day to day, right? They're worried about budget. They're worried about overview of the company. They're worrying about, hey, how can I, improve my profit margin constantly.
yeah.
Whereas the day to day people saw maybe more of a benefit in a sense of, oh, yeah, I can use this every day and it will make me better at my job and it'll make me run my part of the business better. So that kind of director VP levels where it would start and really kind of get their buy-in, and then we could bring in like the C-level suite, and they would be kind of my advocate in a sense of, yeah, this will benefit me, so we should look at it.
And how would you have graded yourself in sales? Like, how did you view yourself as a rep?
Well, certain companies, different grades. I like to say.
Well, you, not
Me
any.
as myself, I'd probably be kind of that A minus, kind of, always room for improvement, but really good at what I did. Um, and as a sales rep, I started off the grind mentality, right, where you just burn yourself
Right.
out.
Everyone starts there. Yeah.
And it's just, it's like banging your head against a wall. And then I would call myself then, maybe I was a C player, maybe even breaking into the B, right? And then what really kind of turned into the A type player was the let's stop grinding. Let's have better, more effective conversations of people who actually want to talk about this rather than just picking up a phone, smiling, dialing. Oh, hey, they're not here anymore. Leave a voicemail.
That's the big, because managers argue with me all the time. Well, that builds up the resilience and the foundation about doing the wrong things.
Well, yeah, yeah. And as a
Because,
manager, I've
yeah,
always been more like, I don't care if you make 100 calls. I don't care if you make 200 calls. If you want to, great, do it. But I would prefer you to make 10 calls and have really quality meetings from it and really quality conversations that will then turn into sales.
right. Because at the end of the quarter, there's no award for the grinder.
Yeah, no, I mean, if there was an award for you made 200 calls today, I mean, a lot of businesses would be out of business.
Oh, I think it's the number one thing today because it's so easy to manage,
Hmm.
but it's so counterproductive. It burns people out. It burns the market out. It's ineffective. Yet, everybody loves it. They just love the sound of it. They put the video clips up and the
Yep.
counts, and it's like, is that the objective?
Well, yeah, and I think a lot of, at least when I was working in the bigger sales orgs, it seems like the objective was totally different depending on the quarter. Certain quarters it was like, yeah, make those 100 calls a day. Other quarters it was, okay, set one appointment a day. And it's like, well, I could set an appointment and nothing can come from it. But how do it was then turning into the conversation of, yeah, you guys can pull up your CRM and see that I made 100 calls today, but I could just log in and put 100 calls in. I wouldn't even make those calls. You would never know. But you're still praising me for doing it. So
So once you had kind of that next step, what came after that? Was it the being able to talk to executives, or
yeah, it was kind of that kind of natural progression of, I felt comfortable talking to, the bottom technology people where I was before. Hey, let me talk to the support engineer or support manager. Easy conversation, right? Knew it. But having that break in to the C-level conversations was definitely an involvement of, okay, the C-levels and the C-suite, they don't necessarily care about this day-to-day thing.
right?
They really want to know how it affects their business and how they can turn that and manage it better or see more profits from it, or what they're worried about at night is they're sometimes they're shareholders. It's like, well, how will they view this if I spend this much money on this?
And did you become great at that or good at that, or
I became very, very good. I mean, great. I was probably great there for a while, but then and I like sales is kind of like, learning math. If you're an engineer or another language, it's use it or lose it, right?
right? And I
To a
think it
certain
much
extent.
much more like language, because language is much more of a performance than
Yep.
math. Math is kind of right or wrong.
Hmm. Hmm.
Language, it's like, how fluent are you? How, you know, good is both your accent, your vocabulary,
Yep.
your recognition.
Yeah, and well, and the reason I relate it to math too is once you get into the higher level math, then it becomes more elegant. Then it's not necessarily about the answer, but it's how did you
You
get that
get the
answer?
answer,
Yeah.
right? Much more like a puzzle.
Yeah, yeah, which, going way back, I, went to school for physics, so I can understand that elegantness of this is math and building it up.
And did that help you with sales? Kind of that analytical
Yeah,
background?
actually, it's kind of one of those very interesting things is when I was first interviewing for sales, I got the question of, why am I going to hire you? You're a technical guy. I can hire a support engineer tomorrow very easily. And why would I hire you? And it's like, don't just think of I'm a technical guy and can't have a conversation. It's different than that. I mean, technology isn't just A, B. It's not just ones and zeros anymore. It's, it's a big roundabout of what is a solution. And that's why I became really good at solution selling, because it was what is solution that fits in the puzzle. Like, I want to put that round peg in that round hole, not the square peg in the round hole.
Well, I mean, because physics it's kind of at the high end of
Mhm.
engineering, right? Intellectually.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I always joked around in a sense of I don't care about the finite math of getting the answer. I just care that I can kind of understand it enough to then say, "Hey, Mister Electrical Engineer or Civil Engineer, finish this off for me."
Yeah. And what was the motivation for the physics? major?
At I really enjoyed it, kind of going through school. I really kind of wanted to be more into that, technology piece, engineering piece. It's kind of where I thought my career would go. And then life kind of happened, and it was like, engineering is great. Don't get me wrong, but I can't really. I get a base salary, and that's it.
Well, plus, the physics is much more. Probably looking for, postdoc degrees, right?
Yeah, that exactly. So when it comes down, it's like, hey, do I want to go to school for another 4 years to then,
Right.
eventually make the money that I can just start making now if I go into sales?
So I can understand like the interviewer's concern about that, because you don't see, you're probably the first physics major I've interviewed.
Yeah, and trust me, that's why I say I have a unique set of skills.
Well, what I'm finding is that great salespeople have both the drive, the
Mhm,
competitiveness, the money motivation, some kind of motor to do all the hard work. But if they have the curiosity of solving the puzzle, the equation, the algorithm, both of those things is where the magic happens.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Because you have to be curious because you're always asking that next question to understand the problem, right?
Well, I had, do you believe that, you know, you have to be an optimist to be successful in sales?
That's a good question in the sense of, I mean, overall, I'm usually a pessimist and I've been
Well,
successful
I've
in it.
met a lot of pessimists because you're not going to see the weak points if you're focused on the optimism.
Yeah, yeah, that is very true.
And when you, any kind of deal, unless it's just a repeat maintenance automatic
Mhm,
deal, any new product into a new company for the first time, it's more than 50% likely that it'll stall at least,
mhm.
or that it'll be marginalized. They'll buy as little as possible, or they just won't tell you where it is.
Yeah, well, yeah, you get that dreaded. I called and followed up, and they don't have time for me. Okay,
And
I'll follow up next week.
well, physics also has that mental model that you probably either developed in your mind about how this deal will get done.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It was more of a process of, okay, this is the feeling I'm getting from it. This is what I've, experienced in the past. This is kind of the path it's going to follow using that kind of analytical process. And then other times of like, I was able to then say, okay, hey, this can't follow an analytical process. This is going to have to kind of evolve on its own rather than me trying to force it.
Well, there's also like the traps, because after a couple of deals where the same pattern, it gets
Hmm.
stuck. They've got money, they want it, they got the problem, uh, they've got the money,
Yep. That
yet
that was all. Yeah.
it
Yeah. That
doesn't
was
happen.
that. Yeah. Then that's when I kind of started to help me evolve too, in a sense of like, oh, I can't put my algorithm on this one. I can, I have to really think about it.
Well, you got to ask yourself, why did it get stuck, and how can
Hmm.
I put a little tweak of control, direction, and
Yeah.
momentum on it?
Yeah.
Because the deals, like sharks, once they stop moving, they die.
Oh yeah. 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 And it's knowing that, and I think looking at people's background, yeah, I'm probably the first physicsy person to talk to, but I'm sure I have a lot of similar backgrounds. Of what I noticed in a lot of salespeople is that kind of competitive athletic background, which is I've
Right, right.
noticed most of the time. I picked up I mean, you're not most, people like physicists, you're going to look at them and, they're going to be labeled as someone who's, yeah, they do their job, they get it done, but they don't
Well,
necessarily have that
by
drive.
default, they're analytical people,
Hmm.
and but if they detach emotion from like solving the problem, where it's just fun and enjoy,
Hmm.
that's not sales.
Yeah.
You have to have that. I want to win. I hate to lose.
Hmm.
I'm going to
Yeah.
do what it takes
Yeah, it's
instead
like
of I'll try my best. Right.
yeah, I'll try, I'll get the job done, I'll try. It's like, well, I don't want you to try. I want to win.
Close.
Like, at the end of the
Yes.
day, I want to win.
Right. And that mentality is very different, because I bet if you asked most physics people, are you competitive? They wouldn't know how to evaluate that question. Competitive against who? About
Yeah,
what?
yeah. Yeah, and then I think I started to notice that towards the end of my physics days, in a sense of, when I was sitting in lab class, I was like, okay, how can I get best to the what we expect the answer to be, rather than let me just try, see where it goes. I'm like, no, how do we win this?
That's a great combination. Um, Now, why didn't you try and either sell more things that were aligned with that background? Either was telecom just what was available?
Telecom is where I had built a network.
Yeah, new
Um,
people.
Knew some people that were already doing it. They said, "Hey, I think you'd be great at this. Don't think of your don't," because I was, yeah, at the time very analytical. They're like, "Forget about that analytical part. You'll be good at this. Trust me. I know you as a person, and you'll be fine. Just give it a little bit. You'll be fine." So that's kind of why I went to telecom.
And how long did it take before you had like the confidence of your manager that you weren't just great on the technical side, that you could pick up the business side and get the deal done?
Um, well, the interesting thing about when I first came on board, I probably had three managers in my first year, because of internal, you know how that goes. My first manager, she was on board. She really, she knew that I had it. She was like, "You're willing to put in the work, and you're willing to, you understand where your weak points are, and you're working on them, and I have confidence that you can do that." Then my second manager was that prototypical micromanager
Yeah.
who he didn't see it at all. He's like, "Why are you on this team? Why were you hired?" Right? Um, and he was the type that said, "Hey, let's go down and do 50 cold calls today." It's like, that's not effective. Like, I get it, but it's not going to be effective for me.
Yeah.
And I finally won him over when we were in a meeting with your VP level suite, but more the finance VP level. And I spun they were having issues with some of their telecom devices, of, how employees were using them. And instead of, them just thinking dollars and cents, I spun it around and really broke down the solution of, you don't have to worry about dollars and cents anymore. You can just put this out there, and it will work effectively with this solution. And that's when he was like, "Oh, okay, you can have these conversations. You can have them buy into what they're worried about, not what the engineer who told them about is worried about."
Yeah.
So that's when he finally, so after, I don't know, it took about 4 months of me just, grinding it out with them and not wanting to, but knowing that I had to.
Right.
Yeah, so
And what skill or ability do you wish you had that would have taken your sales career to the next level?
um I wish I would have had that more initially, that more, what do people care about? Why are they looking for something different, and why are they going to change? Like, what's working now is working. I mean, if it's, how do you show that what they have necessarily could work better? Or that's kind of something I wish someone would have said. You're not trying to sell them like a specific thing to replace something. It's, no, you're trying to improve what they're doing with the product you're telling them about. If
Yeah.
and if I would have had that earlier on, it would have been easier, that much easier when I started.
And was that something that somebody showed you later, or you just came to that?
Yeah, yeah. I had a great mentor, in a sense of, I started to then follow this person around, going job to job, and then when he kind of grew into that VP C-suite, I grew into the manager, of a whole team. So, and he was the one that really was like, "Hey, take let's do this on emotion and what their needs are, rather than just, this is a product that I'm selling, and yeah, you want it because it's a great product." No, it's a product that will benefit you.
Right. Because I think too many of us, we're all programmed to talk about how great it is
Hmm.
versus what does it do for you and where will it take you?
Hmm. And in big telecom, it's very brand happy, in a sense of, this is the brand, we're better than everyone else. Just worry about the brand. And it's like, no, it's not about always about the brand. It's about what you can do to help improve their problem, rather than just, "Hey, this brand's great, buy us."
Yeah. And what advice would you have for somebody who's struggling early in their career in sales?
Um, Early in your career, I think don't burn yourself out. That's the
Yeah,
number one thing, because it's so easy to do. It's it's you feel like you have to put in all this time and all this work, and you end up doing more work than you need to be doing. It's take the time to understand the product, first of all, understand it, but then why people would need the product. Why would they see value in it? Why would a CFO from some company want your product? I mean, at the
right,
end of the day, why would they want your product? Calling them and hounding them, eventually they're just going to stop listening to you and,
right.
do the typical ghost. But if you come with them to a need and a want and what they're maybe looking for that they sometimes don't even know they're looking for, you have much more effective conversations when that happens.
Cool. Thanks, Clarence. Where can people go to connect and follow you?
Connect and follow. A great LinkedIn, obviously, like everyone has, is I also have a personal website. It's just cannon.cloud, my last name .cloud. Have a lot of, one, engineering projects I worked on, and two, kind of relating that more to the sales side. And then my own company, smap.works. I like to say it's a company that's built from the sales up, not the engineering up. So we think a little differently.